I'm Stella Pizana, and welcome to People in Perspective. Today joining me is my mother, Rebecca Pizana. She is an artist. Thank you for joining me. So she is an art teacher, is that right?
Yes, I am an art teacher.
So how did you first get into art?
Well, to be honest, I didn't take my first real art class until college because I went to 3 different high schools and it just never happened. And then in college, I decided to major in creative writing. So I was always interested in something creative, and then I decided to take art classes, and that's where I found my true passion. I minored in art in college, and then it's just always something I've dabbled with, and then as I've gotten older, I've spent a lot more time perfecting my craft.
Yeah, so if you've spent so much time on it, what is your medium?
I mostly use oil paints. I'm a painter. I have a studio space in Western Springs that I paint out of, and I try to spend as much time as I can there when I'm not working or taking care of children.
What scale do you usually use?
What size painting?
Yeah.
I usually paint pretty big, so 24 to 36, bigger, things like that.
So after you were done with college and there was no more art classes, how did you really pursue art after?
Well, there was a lot of years where I didn't. Right out of school, I actually went to Europe and worked in a bar in Scotland for a year. I left with $1,000 and just spent a year backpacking and working.
So how was it being isolated in a completely different country all by yourself?
Initially it was hard. I started out in London, which obviously is a big city, but I think it's harder to kind of get to know people in a big city. So I worked in London as like a typist, actually. This is when I guess I'm old because people actually use typewriters, so I had to type stuff for people in an office. And then I got tired of being in such a big city, so I went up to Scotland to a little tiny village after a few months, and there I worked as a bartender in a little tiny hotel in a little really small, and I mean really small, little village. And I got to know the locals, and it was really good for a while. And then I came back to the United States after that and waited tables and kind of did art on the side.
So when you did art on the side, what made it so enjoyable where you kind of had to do that?
I guess, everyone kind of has that one thing in life, or if they're lucky, they have that one thing in life that they just really enjoy, and when they do it, all the time evaporates and stress disappears and they're just really happy. So, whether I was doing it in a professional manner or just for fun, it was just always something that I would do on my own, no matter what. So even if I wasn't selling my art, I'd still be painting.
Yeah.
Because just like musicians who aren't professional musicians, people still love to go home and play the guitar and play the piano and stuff like that.
Is there like a specific time of day where you focus only on painting?
In an ideal situation, if I didn't have a job and I didn't have home responsibilities, my life, how I would picture my day would be to get up early, drink my coffee, and then spend like a few hours pretty early in the morning when I could be really focused and work. But obviously that can't happen because I have a job.
Yeah. And so you work at Hubbard, which is a CPS school in Chicago, right?
Yes, it's a high school on the southwest side.
So you're teaching art there right
yes,
now?
I am teaching art there, but I've also taught English because I majored in creative writing and I minored in art. When I went back to school to get my master's, which was a teaching certification, I had enough credentials to teach both English and art. And of course, I'm sure like most schools, there are way more English teachers than there are art teachers. So it took a little while for me to kind of like maneuver my way into the art department. So
if you had a preference of what you would like to teach more, would it be English or art?
Well, obviously art.
Yeah.
Because it's what I enjoy. I mean, and I think other teachers, actually, I had this conversation the other day. I think, teachers are like, well, it has to be so much easier teaching art because it's not a core subject and you're not grading papers. And in some regards, like grading homework is easier. but you still surprisingly have the same issues as you do in the English department of, surprisingly to me, for someone who loves art, that students who just don't do their work or complain about doing artwork, which, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like art can kind of be like a stress reliever, but to some students, in your case, it isn't.
Exactly. Like I actually am teaching in the evenings 2 nights a week for students who failed art. It's credit recovery classes. And these kids hate art, and it's almost like pulling teeth to get them to pick up a pencil and draw. So same as writing essays.
Yeah, so how does one really fail art, like in your opinion?
They just don't do their work.
So is it because they just genuinely don't want to, or just because they just have like other obligations, or?
I don't know what the answer to that is exactly. There's sometimes I think kids just shut off and they just don't do anything for whatever reason, whatever they're going through. Sometimes, you know, I don't know about at all high schools, but at my high school we have a real hard time getting kids to be on time to school. So there's students that miss their first period over and over and over again. So that's a reason for failing a pretty passable class. But yeah, just not turning things in.
Yeah. So you also have, you have your own art studio, and you sell your own art.
Yes.
Outside of teaching art and everything.
Yes.
So how do you really like know what to price your pieces?
That's a really hard question that I haven't quite figured out the exact way that works 100% best. I try to price them by size, so that's like the most uniform way to do it. So if something's like 30 by 30, you know, you charge 10 cents, you add 30 and 30, that's $10 per inch, so that's a $600 painting. But, you know, there's the argument that if you price yourself too low, people don't take you as seriously, but then if you price yourself too high, and then, you know, I do different art shows, so sometimes when you're in a more wealthier area, you price them higher, and then you kind of have to, just like anything, you have to know your market.
Do you think that, how many like pieces have you like, is there a time where you were in an art show where you sold like a lot of pieces and you were really proud of that moment?
Well, I just did the Brookfield Art Show, which I didn't think I would sell anything because it's Brookfield and it's really small, and I sold 3 really large paintings. And the week before, I did the one in LaGrange, the West End, and I sold 3 paintings there too. So,
how much did you make in total?
Probably each show about $1,800.
Well, that is all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stella Pizana, and this is People in Perspective, and I'll see you next time.